we know, both the Caps and Wizards lost in the second round of the playoffs, short of the conference finals. Des, I'll throw this to you. Which one of these two teams is positioned to advance deeper next season?
I think you'd have to say the Caps, just because, as I mentioned before, the NHL playoffs are really kind of unpredictable. 8 seeds can get to the finals. Whereas the NBA playoffs, it's much more of a step-by-step grind, and individual talent can make such a difference. And in the East, obviously, LeBron's not going anywhere, so that looks like a pretty big stumbling block. And other teams in the East, the NBA, also look like they're improving. I think the Wiz have room to improve also with Beal and Wall. So it's certainly it's not crazy to say that they have the better chance, but I think you got to go with the Caps in this case.
Chelsea, is that how you see it, or you look at the Wizards?
Assuming Holtby is back, I completely agree. Also because we've talked about them, Burakovsky and Kuznetsov are presumably only going to get better.
Yeah.
So you're kind of adding talent in that way without having to reach too far. So, I think given Ovechkin and if you bring back Holtby, you have the foundation there to at least get back to where you were. And the Wizards, an injury away from not being there. So.
Yeah, the Wizards' best player hurt for 4 games in the second round, Neil. They still gave Atlanta a bit of a series. Capitals, another meltdown. Which of these two teams is positioned better going forward, do you think?
It's too soon to tell. You need to see what these teams look like after the offseason. If the Wizards change into a more title caliber type of team in terms of three-point shots, they have a good chance. We've seen LeBron James and the Cavaliers be vulnerable in the playoffs. So making another extended run is not out of the question. And if the Caps somehow find a way to get that right wing, but also Holtby is able to have another successful season, they could easily go further than the Wizards. So it really depends on what these teams look like when the start of season happens.
Paul Pierce for the Wizards, though, that's a huge difference if he comes back or not in determining which team is going to be better for the playoffs next season, right?
I think it is a big difference, and I think you can look at the coaches too. I think everyone thinks Barry Trotz in relative terms is a better coach than Randy Whitman, but Randy Whitman showed some things in the playoffs. Maybe the light went on. Maybe he'll start to realize, like, we play in the modern NBA now, and the three-point shot's a good thing, and maybe he'll loosen up his offensive sets.
And you mentioned Paul Pierce. If he's not here, who on the Wizards is going to take those clutch shots? Because for some reason, they don't trust Beal or Wall with those shots, right?
Yeah,
But I'm saying, they need to figure that part out, because if Paul Pierce does leave, that leaves that type of hole. I'm not saying that there's like a clutch ability where that can't be replaced, but at some point you have to rely on these guys to take those critical shots.
Well, I think Beal's the obvious guy to inherit that role, but as long as Pierce is there, why not let him take the big shot if he's there?
Right, but I'm saying if he isn't, right, that's going to be part of the change going forward of the team as to how much do you rely on these young guys.
Chelsea, let me ask you: do you think there's anything to the fact that the Capitals have experienced so much heartbreak, and the Wizards really haven't been at that point yet? There's still they still have a long ways to go to get to, a point where they're going to have a 3-1 lead and blow it year after year after year. Psychologically, do the Wizards have an advantage knowing that they haven't been there before?
I think you can argue it either way. I think you can kind of argue that there's so much heartbreak that you're due, or, that there's not enough and you kind of don't expect a collapse. I think the Wizards are probably mentally in a better place given that they gave the Hawks a run for their money without Wall, but I wouldn't rule out the Capitals just because they've done this again and again. This time felt a little different, so I don't know if that means anything, but I think fans would agree. Felt like they made a little more progress, had a little more teeth this time around.